Welcome to Veteran State of Mind. I'm your host, Geraint Jones, and today we have a guest from the other side of the Atlantic, coming at us from Austin, Texas. Before we get into it, I want to say a big thank you to Combat Fuel for sponsoring today's podcast and my gains, especially for sponsoring my gains. You know by now, guys, what do I love? I love vegan protein. Why? Not because I'm a vegan, because it tastes delicious. Salted caramel. Really, if you don't like salted caramel, then you ain't no friend of mine, basically. I mean, it is absolutely delicious. And as what I like to do with it is I like to get a bit of almond milk, or you can use regular cow milk if you want. But if you are a vegan, you're probably not going to want that cow milk, are you? Or you'll be thrown out the cult. So, I'm only joking. I have vegans listening. I know they're going to be texting me right now, but I like it. So you're going to mix in a bit of, about 200 ml of almond milk. You're going to mix it in with a scoop of the vegan protein. Just get it in a bowl, mix it up, and you will have yourself a delicious souffle. So there you go. And pre-workout, I don't recommend mixing that with milk. Oh my God. If you are an absolute mentalist, then yes, go ahead and mix your pre-workout with milk. But if you're a normal human being, like the rest of us, then what I recommend doing is you take a scoop or half a scoop of regular pre-workout and mix it with 2 scoops of the pump-up one. Obviously, you don't want to waste that on all legs day. You want a nice upper body session for that. And then you will have some beautiful vascularity going on. Unless you're fat, in which case you need to lose some weight and then you'll see the vascularity. Just keeping it real with you guys. I'm not going to pretend you're going to have veins popping out all over the place if you're a big chunky monkey. Right. That wasn't very positive of me. But don't worry, because Zack is the most positive person on the planet. I'll tell you how I met Zack. So last year, I get a message off this good-looking hunk of an American guy, and I'm thinking, oh, hey, what's going on here? And Zack offered me this opportunity to come over to Austin and talk at a function for veterans. In fact, that's where we met Mike Sorelli that was on the podcast. You remember Mike? That's where I met Mike. So thank you, Zack, for that, because Mike is obviously now a friend of the podcast. And anyway, I'm thinking, why, what's going on here? This sounds a bit too good to be true. Going over to Austin, having a chat with people, having a chat with some fellow veterans over there. And then he was like, yeah, we'll take care of a place for you to stay and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, you know what? Never met this bloke. Well, fuck it. Let's do it. So I went there and robbed all my stuff. Nah, I didn't really. Put us up. And I was supposed to leave a lot earlier than I did leave, actually. I ended up staying there for ages because that whole crew, the whole crew in Austin, shout out the Austin crew, I had such a nice time there. I really didn't want to leave. And I think I was supposed to go, I think I got there on Friday night. I was supposed to leave on the Sunday or the Monday. I think I ended up staying a week or something. It was fucking awesome. But yeah, so I suppose more of that story is, guys, if someone offers you the opportunity to do something, jump at it, because you'll end up making a big group of friends off the back of it. So on to Zack then. Basically, Zack he's a fitness coach, he's a mental health coach, a mental resiliency coach, just coach, basically, I think would be the best way of summing up Zack. He's successful in bodybuilding himself, but also coaches a lot of people through it. But I think as you will find out yourselves, he has a lot of very interesting things to say about just the kind of the human psyche, I suppose, and how to better condition ourselves. Because in the same way that you have to put your reps into in the gym to condition your body, you have to put the reps in to condition your mind too. And that is really kind of Zack's field of expertise. So enough from me. Let's get to him, shall we? Please give a very warm welcome to Mr. Zack Blakeney. Zack, welcome to the podcast, mate.
Hey, thanks a lot.
We were just kicking off talking, and then because I was going to just have a catch up, because we haven't really had a good catch up in a while. But you were saying something I thought is important for people to hear. So you just described 2020 as going from shit to lit, which is probably the most American thing we've ever had said on the podcast. Talk us through that, mate.
Well, it's funny because it's not even terminology that I would normally use. So that just kind of tells you the anomaly that was 2020 brought that phrase out in me. Yeah, man, I think that, when you looked at everything that happened and you take a look back, there were times where, especially during quarantine here in America, where we went into a 3-month lockdown. And it was actually during that time that, I was trying to push forward with, my own goals, my own aspirations, but also I had just hired on, my assistant coach and my assistant, who you've met, Sunny and Anna, and they also are like family to me. So I had just hired them to the point where they left their job. And that happened in January, which it's coming full circle about the time that we met for the first time. And then we went into lockdown. So the first thing that was on my mind was, okay, I need to pivot my business because not only is it me now, but I have two people that I love dearly caring for, and I'm trying to provide for them. So I went into I went into work mode, and my type of work mode is on another level for a lot of people. Essentially, I woke up at 7 a.m. every single morning, and I was in front of my computer from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. doing social media, working on ads. I was trying to come out with a at-home program for people to basically keep their mental and physical health in line while this was going on. And, with all the bandwidth that I had and the manpower that I had, I was able to get something up in about 10 days. Well, the problem with that is that Peloton and all these other, big business fitness apps were coming out with free 30 days or free 90 days subscription. So it was like, awesome. So as a small business owner, it was tough, and after those 10 days of literally working like a dog and then basically finding out that the amount of work, time, and energy I'd put into it did not get the outcome that I wanted, I had a breakdown, man. I was on the couch and I was just crying, and all of my self-worth issues start coming in, feeling like a failure, feeling like I'm failing them, my Sonny and Anna. And it was from that moment in which, my girlfriend Julia was sitting on the couch with me, and she was consoling me, and, everything that basically she could do inside of her to make me feel better. And it was after that moment that I started to realize that for me to continue to progress as a human, that this was probably the most valuable time that I could spend, because I had more of it, to start learning more about myself and understanding why it had brought up, all of these self-worth issues, why it had brought up this feeling like a failure. And that was really the goal going forward. So I did a whole bunch of work, man. I started doing back into my self-awareness work. I got a self-awareness coach, a leadership coach that helped me through a lot. Probably my most valuable lesson learned was patience, and that also just because the world stops doesn't mean that you do. And that was the biggest thing, is I was trying to push forward during a time that I needed to look inward. And by looking inward, it has accelerated every part of me and my business to the point that we've had our biggest months financially with sales in November and December ever. And I would have never have thought that would have been the case, but I attribute it to doing the work, getting back into myself, understanding my thought process, and really bringing my heart to my words, to my actions.
It's so interesting, dude, because it's weird, because there's these external factors which then make us, which then obviously have internal consequences, for us. And so at first those external factors, lockdown, business, bigger businesses taking business away, all that kind of stuff, that caused one effect in you to begin with. And then the external factors haven't changed, but the way that you deal with them has changed, and now you're in a totally different place. Do you know what I mean? The external factors are just the same as they were 12 months ago.
Yeah, they're a little bit better in Austin and in Texas. I would say that our life is pretty much normal here, except for everybody is wearing masks. So we have a Republican governor, and these are the more conservative side. But when it came to Corona, it was more liberal because of business. That's really the heart of the Republican, free trade, free enterprise. So with that being said, we're not really under too many restrictions here at all, except for the mask. But I would say that a lot of people still feel like they're under restrictions. They would feel as if, the social distancing thing is still, it's a tragedy, to be honest. I mean, we've taken away the one thing that humans crave, which is human connection. And luckily, we can do it on Zoom and things like that. But like, there's nothing like sitting next to one of your friends and having a heart to heart and feeling that connection. And I'm doing that. I mean, I'm not saying there's people that aren't doing that, but the people that aren't doing that, that are avoiding family gatherings, that are avoiding friend gatherings because they're in fear of getting this virus, they're missing probably the most essential part of their life for happiness.
I fucking miss hugs.
Oh my goodness. I'll give you a big one the next time I see you, man.
Yeah, bro, I'm a hugger. I love hugs. I always used to push back against stuff like that, and now I feel so much better for it. I had a few friends before Christmas. I had some, I don't know, am I breaking lockdown rules saying this? I don't give a fuck. Come at me, Drake Footy. So basically, I was going to meet a few of my friends before Christmas, and my mum was like, well, because obviously I do stuff for my gran. She was like, can you, like, you guys, make social distance and all that stuff. And we all decided, the guys, that we wanted hugs. So everybody got COVID tests so that we could have hugs, because we fucking love hugs. I want hugs with my boys.
Man.
I feel so much better for it. Like, there's no way. It's something that we need, and it's loneliness was a big problem in society. Like, I'm someone that, like, I think I can understand why it happened, because people want their private space and stuff. But I think the direction that society was already going in, with people living in apartment buildings where they don't see anybody else, where you're on your own, you're essentially in a cell, that was all like, there's a reason that a lot of human rights groups consider solitary confinement torture.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they literally do. And that's not me exaggerating, people. You can go online and look that up. Torture, solitary confinement is considered torture by most human rights groups. And we need this contact.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I mean, you need the one, when you start looking at it from a space of spiritual awakening, which is, that we are all one. That in itself tells you that, like, Gez, man, you are an extension of me, right? Everybody on this planet is an extension of me. And with that being said, I am an extension of God, the infinite creator, right? So if we have this look at this, and it's like, I'm actually missing a part of me by not being able to give a hug to a stranger, no less, or even a friend, or even a family member. And then on the other side of it, it's like, okay, well, with that being said, when I am alone, and this is something that I hope that a lot of people can pick up on while they're alone, is that you're not actually alone. You're never alone. You might feel alone, but you're never alone. And when you can start to wrap your mind around that, when you feel as if there's a presence with you, and this presence is, in my belief, your higher self or God, in this sense, you start to realize that you can always connect to this source. You can connect to this energy. And that's one of the main things that I learned during quarantine, was like, hey, even though I feel alone, I need to start remembering that I always have me. And as long as I'm okay with me and I love me, I actually don't need to be around anybody else to feel happy. Now, is it a requirement of life? I kind of think it is. You know what I mean? Like, it is a need. I would say that it is a need, but do I necessarily need to have it for me to feel love for myself? No, I'm okay there. And as long as you can feel that by yourself, then you're going to be much better off being alone, or actually feel better about being alone because of the work you do to become that way.
I totally agree, bro. I enjoy my own company. However, I would rather not exist than if it means not having other people's company. It doesn't need to be all the time. And I think everybody, I'm a big believer that, I don't, one thing that might help the world is if everybody stopped getting in relationships until they can be happy with themselves.
Oh yeah. Me and you are, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Like, if that could happen, like, you should be able to be happy on your own. And then that other people, your friends, your family, your girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever, that should then be like an X factor which makes you even better. I think, to be honest, mate, I've seen that. Like, I've seen the people that I knew were good in themselves have done a lot better through this period than the people who do need, like, because a lot of the time it might just be that they need a distraction so they don't have to look inwards. Because, as you know yourself, and I know myself, when you first look inside yourself, it's fucking terrifying.
Yeah, no, it's scary. And I always say that it's scary not because you're a bad person, but because you don't know yourself. So when you think about what causes anxiety, it's literally the unknown. So the fact that if you are feeling anxiety about yourself, it's because that, to me, that is your marker. That's your internal marker to then start seeking, to discover. A lot of times people see anxiety as being such a bad thing. And I've actually learned that anxiety is your bodily marker to know that you're not on the path that you should be on. And if you see it as that, and you want to stop living in anxiety, then you need to start listening internally. You need to start listening to your inner voice. And this alignment that you can achieve by starting to listen inward and then having your thoughts align with that voice. And then obviously your thoughts become things in which your actions start to align with this inner voice coming from your heart. Your anxiety will start to diminish a lot. But the scary thing for most people is, and what we're talking about is that unknown is not only as your past proven that maybe you've done some bad things that's causing you guilt, but those bad things that are causing you guilt has then had you internalized to being a bad person that is causing you shame. And what happens around that space and the difference in feeling shame about an experience and also seeing and feeling gratitude about an experience is the ability to see the lesson in the experience. Because that's the thing that changes everything for people is if you're in a bad space and you've done a bad thing and you're feeling guilty about it, then you constantly relive the guilt that you feel over and over again. When if you would look at that experience and say, okay, I fucked up, but what I did is this, and now I've learned that if I do this again and I do something different, then I'll have a different result, and then this will be the result I'm trying to achieve, and you see it that way, then you start to see the gratitude in the experience as being a gift to you to be able to change and transform into the person that you want to be.
Yeah, and I'll give an example to that related to PTSD and military services. So I know a lot of guys, and I asked my therapist about this when I used to go. I said, like, what's the main kind of issue that people have with this PTSD? And a lot of it came down to shame. Feeling weakness because I should have been able to do this. I should have been able to save him. I should have been able to see that and do this and do that different. And that's a very common with soldiers, because you have to have a bit of a God complex to go into the job in the first place or to think that you can survive combat,
Yeah.
And then, but then that can, when something doesn't go to plan, you can do that. And then the way it flipped for me with that was when instead of going, because the outcome, obviously, when I lost one of my guys, the outcome wasn't what I wanted. But then you look at yourself and you go, well, what did I do well? And, and then you kind of look at it, through a different lens. And I think it's just to say this ability to reframe things is so important. But before we get into that, I just want to kind of get into like the nuts and bolts and practicalities of how does somebody, because we're talking a lot about looking inwards and talking a lot about self-awareness and things. This is obviously not something that we ever get taught, in school or anything. So, how does somebody become more aware? How does somebody become able to look inside themselves and recognize these things?
So many times life gives us experiences to wake up. Like they are for you to be like, okay, how I've been living my life, I thought it was this way, and all the experiences that I have acquired during this line of thinking has caused me some sort of pain. It is causing me some sort of experience in which is forcing me to grow. And for me, for instance, my experience was basically being a porn addict since I was 14, not being aware of really the damage that it caused on my own soul and the people around me. And it came to head by the time I was 30, 31 to a divorce from, at the time, the woman that I thought was going to be with for the rest of my life. So my description of this is basically my inner voice started as a whisper when I was in my early 20s. Hey, porn's probably the problem. But my brain wanted to deflect every other reason. Like I was different. What's wrong with me? Am I always going to be this way? Because I was having sexual performance issues with women because of my pornography use was so deep that it had actually changed my physiology of the brain's reaction to physical touch rather than sight. So again, when you do porn, you're watching something on a screen, and then you start getting turned on by seeing something rather than the physical touch of a woman. And it's actually, if you go into look at it, once I did all the research about it, I went into it, I was like, oh shit, this is what happened to me.
Yeah.
So it was huge and it was painful. And she left me. And for a long time, I was not able to admit my faults. And that awakening moment was what I consider actually the first step in self-awareness, is admitting or awakening to a different reality and admitting the things that you have done to yourself. Because without admittance, without bringing it to light and saying, hey, okay, this is actually a problem, you're never going to address it. You're just going to let it sit in your subconscious. And then those subconscious patterns are going to become behavior of destruction that never pushes you forward. So that was number one. I need to admit that I am these things, because being an addict, there were things around being an addict that were in my behavior, like lying and manipulating and controlling, right? Because that's what we want to do. We don't want anybody to know about our addiction. So like, we're going to project that we're better than we are. And we're not going to let anybody in because this is a big shameful thing. I started admitting those things. Okay, I have been manipulative. I have lied. I have been dishonest, which, can be two different things in the same thing. And I have been controlling. So once I brought those to light, it was like, okay, now I can see this and I need to address this. Now, there's two different ways, two main archetypes that I like to use with self-awareness coaching. You have the male archetype, which is going to be the logic and the light or wisdom. And then you have the female archetype, which is going to be like compassion, love, forgiveness. You can start with the male just by questioning everything. Why do I think this way? Why does this thought stimulate an emotion that I don't like? It's just like answering why, until you get to some sort of answer in which gives you an understanding of yourself. Now, it's very helpful and it's very productive. And I would tell you that the number one thing to start from that position is knowing that your thoughts are not you. Your thoughts are a product of your brain, which is an organ, and it's its job to think. So when you think about it like that, your soul has the choice of which thought it wants to attach itself to, or it can create the thought for you, your soul, which is going to be way more aligned with making you feel happy. But once you can discredit your thought process, then you start answering the question, why, you'll get to a point where you start to understand yourself. But what I found in that whole thing is that at some point, there is no answer to why. And the only answer is, I need to forgive myself. The only answer is, I need to love myself and be compassionate and understanding of the fact that, hey, maybe the why is because I didn't know any better. And if that's something that you can take with you, a very compassionate grounding statement, and something that Gez might have helped you in a sense of like, or even helping people with PTSD, is you were doing the best you could with the knowledge that you had. And that was my grounding statement for a long time. I was doing the best that I could with the knowledge that I had. And it was very compassionate for me, but it did something else for me. It made me want to learn more. It made me want to say, shit, okay, if I knew this much and this is what happened, if I want to be better, I need to learn more. And then that was just this huge, snowball of I was podcast, books, anything that interests me in the self-awareness space started to become my whole being of who I was. So it's, again, self-awareness being, and it is complicated because each human being, the complexities of each human being and their own thought process is to your own. But there are still strategies like taking a male or female approach to really start to discredit, find out what your true self is, and then also be compassionate and forgive yourself. Because without forgiveness, you can't release the emotional baggage. You can discredit it all you want. Okay, yeah, this isn't true, this isn't true, this isn't true. But it still doesn't mean it doesn't have the emotional scar, or it's an emotional wound, I would say, until you turn around and start forgiving yourself for that experience. And then it can be a scar, and then you can truly heal.
How much time do you set aside for learning? For learning about self-awareness and self-development in particular?
So what's really cool, man, is that I've learned so much just through my clients, because a part of what this is, and it's very hard for some people to understand, is that for me individually, and there are other people out there, one, your intuition is a superpower in its own right. And if you're connected with your inner voice or your intuition is that feeling of like, is this right or is this wrong? What's wrong with this person? I have a very strong intuition. So if somebody tells me something like, it was an okay day, but overall I'm doing pretty good, I'm going to attach myself to, well, why was it only an okay day? Talk to me about that. And then when you have that type of intuition in which you can start to pick up on not only the words that they're using, but the energy that's behind the words, and then also the intention of what they're saying, then that opens up, basically the awareness of understanding that opens up doors and windows for you to be able to like kind of get into the cracks in and start to talk to them. So one of the biggest things that I like to do for strengthening my intuition, and this is where this comes full circle, is that meditation. And my form of meditation is basically transcendental meditation. There are so many different forms. But when you take 20 minutes of your day to just be still and listen to your inner voice, it becomes louder and louder and louder. And as it becomes louder, it develops. And again, intuition or inner voice, as it develops and becomes louder, it becomes something that drowns out those negative thoughts. So that's something that meditation is one. And then the other thing is, if I was going to devote amount of time, normally it's maybe about 30 minutes on average a day. And I'm either listening to an audiobook or I'm actually doing some sort of refining of my own current practice. Because as I'm listening and learning, I have my self-awareness practice and then the self-awareness practice that I teach to others. And I pull that in and then I start to develop something new. And it's hard for me to explain this, but it's based off of also my intuition. Because I'll take a concept like, let's say, the Control-Alt-Delete method. The Control-Alt-Delete method is basically control your thinking, alter your thought process, and then delete negativity. It's a mindfulness technique. But the first one that it came from was the 5-second rule. If you know who Mel Robbins is, she came up with the 5-second rule, which is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And during that time, it gives your brain enough time to basically alter your thinking, where I turned it into Control-Alt-Delete as a applicable thing that most people know from computers. But once you say that in your head, it sticks. And when it sticks like that, it literally does give you time to alter your thinking. So this is just an example of taking somebody else's thing and then trying to basically repackage it to something that's more relatable and more understandable to most people.
I want to come back on the porn addiction, mate, because we have a lot of young listeners, young lads listening. And I feel quite lucky in a way, because I've talked about it before, so I won't go fully into it here because people have heard it before, because when I've done it, I'll talk about it on another episode. But I know for a fact that porn fucked me up sexually for a bit, as it has done with a lot of young men. And I really kind of think now, like, I'm the same. I think drugs in moderation, do it. Drinking in moderation, do it. Porn in moderation, do it. I'm all for it, but I do think that a lot of people are addicted to porn, a lot of young men especially. And I think that, anyone listening to this, it's like, and I do worry especially about people that are growing up around it now, because to be honest, it was a massive fucking effort to watch porn when I was a kid, because you have to spend about 30 minutes loading up one photo. Yeah. And now it's just everywhere and it's all the time. Like, you just get it all the time. And I have been an addict myself. I don't actually know if you ever I had a dream about cocaine last night. I have a dream about cocaine many nights, to be honest. It happens quite a lot. And I'm not sure if these things ever totally kind of, go away once you have an attachment to them. Mm-hmm. But, there's a difference between having a dream about something and then waking up and going buying a bag in the morning, Yeah. And, it's, I feel for people who have an addiction where all they need to do is look at their phone to fulfill that addiction. Whereas, for instance, if you have a drug addiction, you have to make the effort of going to get the drugs, and it's a lot harder to hide from your family, etc., etc., etc. Whereas a porn addiction is something that people can all hide very well. And I'm sure a lot of lads listening to this now are getting quite embarrassed and maybe feeling quite uncomfortable listening to this. And if that's you, then please keep listening, because this is, you're the person this is for. And I've been there, and Zack's been there, and a lot of other people. More people than you know will admit have been there, basically. And again, I'm not saying you should never watch porn. I'm not saying that whatsoever. We've had Will Pounder on the podcast, who is the fucking porn star of the year last year, or whatever he won. And so I'm not against porn by any means. But recognizing an addiction is imperative to moving past an addiction. So can you tell us a bit more about like a bit about how it kind of how damaging it was for you, and how because I've met your girlfriend, she's beautiful, so I want some light at the end of the tunnel for the young lads listening to this.
So porn has been a very interesting learning experience for me about everything that it has affected in my life. And the same thing will be affected by pretty much any user that starts to rely on it for your sexual needs. and that's what happened with me again, when I'm 14 and my parents have a computer in the basement, and it's a finished basement. It's basically where I'm lounging. It's my place essentially. And God bless them, they did the best they could, with putting up like parental blocks and stuff like that, but when you're determined, you're determined.
There's nothing more determined than owning a young lad.
That is very true. And so it started very young. And I would say that also, for me, I was born with anxiety. And when you look at epigenetics, the study of epigenetics now, and you see how anxiety can be passed on, through your parents' genes to you, I was chewing my fingers to the nub when I was 5 years old. Why? I don't know. What did I have to be nervous about? And what it was a compulsive, action based off the feeling of anxiety. So when you wrap up anxiety, naturally for me, with pornography, which, stimulated more anxiety for me, because when you're in front of a computer, it's a safe space, right? You don't have to perform for anybody or any girl or male, if that's what you choose. You don't have to worry about, how you look or anything else. And then you take yourself out of that safe space and you allow another woman to see you. It's a very vulnerable thing. Sex is a very vulnerable thing. And I had programmed myself to not be prepared for that. So I was very uncomfortable, and it caused me anxiety. So when you're anxious, and this is where performance anxiety comes from, when you're anxious, your blood vessels constrict. So, well, how are you going to get an erection with the constrict blood vessels? And then the other thing is, again, you start basically thinking the worst. And when we talk about framing, if you're in the middle of doing this, for me, at least, when I was in the middle of trying to have sex with a woman, I was afraid that I wasn't going to be able to perform. So again, of course, your thoughts become things. So if I'm thinking that I'm not going to be able to perform, then guess what? I'm not. So that happened actually. The first time I ever tried to have sex with a girl was when I was like 16, and we were drunk at a party too, but I was unable to do it. And I was so incredibly nervous and uncomfortable. And that experience, what I found, like pushed me further into pornography, because I was back in a safe space. And once I got into the 20s, into college, I used to lock myself in my room saying I was studying, to my roommates. And I was not studying. It was a
classic study wank.
Yeah, it was 8-hour marathon, man. It was ridiculous.
But the thing is, mate, like, I just want to jump in here and say, like, I want people listening to know, like, that's not a norm, like, that's not uncommon. Like, you're a young lad full of testosterone and you have a computer and access to porn. Mm-hmm. It's normal to want to watch porn, right? Me and Zack are not saying that you're abnormal if you want to watch porn. What we're just kind of saying is that, like, like, that's normal to want that, but here's going to be the downside from it. Because I don't want anyone to think that that's abnormal to want to watch porn when you've got a computer in uni and you're a young man.
Yeah, so the tipping point where I would say that it actually becomes a problem is what's called escalation. And escalation is where you no longer, basically, the dopamine and serotonin hit that you're getting from watching pornography when you're watching just a male and a female, basic heterosexual sex, starts to not do it for you anymore. And then you start looking up like midget porn and rape porn and all this other stuff that is not realistic to what the actual experience is like with a woman. That is when things start going awry. That is when you're going to start that basically, think about this, like, all pictures that we see around us influence our brain. So when you start being influenced by rape porn, which is why a lot of rapists say that they started watching rape porn and then that made them escalate to actually do the action. They were fulfilling a fantasy. That's when it's a problem. And if you are like myself, then I'm always going after that dopamine hit. So I started and they even show this in studies in 2009 and 2010 on porn users, is that there's a huge difference between video pornography and still image pornography. And the effect that it has on your brain, and the fact that you could be in front of a computer and open up 10 different videos with 10 different tabs and watch each one of them on your way to climax, shows you that once you get in bed with a woman, it's nothing like that. It's nowhere close to the things that you're watching. And the fact that you're conditioning yourself to basically ejaculating to these weird things, again, once you get into the bed with a woman, it's just not normal anymore. Like, it's not going to do it for you. So again, my experience with that is the escalation, the addiction, the anxiety, and then also being unable to perform multiple times started to stimulate such strong fear around intimacy and sex that literally with my ex-wife, I was waking up in the morning and one of the first thoughts I would have was, I hope she doesn't want to have sex right now. And then I would think about during the day, like, oh, okay, if she wants to have sex, like, when am I going to be prepared? Like, do I need to get some Viagra? Right. I was taking Viagra, Cialis, stuff like that to try and mask the problem.
Right.
And yeah, man, it was just a cycle of feeling unworthy of everything, and love being the center point of that, which, now that I'm beyond it, like, love is the most important thing in this lifetime that you can experience. And experiencing genuine love with another human being is so magical that I felt prior to this that I could never show love in the capacity that I wanted to. And, that my sex life and intimacy and porn was influencing that. It was influencing my behavior. It was influencing my thought process to the point where I wasn't who I wanted to be. I was actually way off who I wanted to be.
How can somebody get out of this trap?
Oh, it's fucking hard, dude. I'll tell you that much. Jeez.
Or it's not hard, bum bum.
It's hard. So one, the experience of having the divorce was the ultimate for me. Like I said, some people's awakening experiences aren't as painful. I would say that mine on a Richter scale of pain was a 9 out of 10 and a 10 out of 10 in some ways. So once that happened, and basically everything I thought was going to happen in my life was broken down, and you had to basically start from zero, that was a very easy way for me to stop. Now, it didn't mean that I wasn't actually pulled to watch pornography. I do most of my work right now in front of a computer, but I started to identify the triggers that made me want to look. So like one of them was like, for instance, when Julia would leave and I was alone, instantly I would start thinking about porn. So I knew that. I was like, okay, here's a trigger. I'm alone and I'm sitting here and I can do this right now. But the biggest way, and this is a great self-awareness practice as well, of how I overcame this, is that I used to tell myself a story around porn. The story I would tell myself was, it's going to be okay. I'm just going to look at porn, get sexually turned on, climax, do my thing. And then afterwards, I'll be fine and I won't feel any shame or regret. That story was a lie so often that I finally started to become aware of that story, because again, the end result was always shame and guilt, like instantly, like I feel guilty, I feel shameful. And once I started thinking about what the end result actually was, rather than what I had fantasized it being, it stopped my behavior, because I was like, why are you going to keep doing this? This is stupid. You say this every single time that you're going to be fine. And then every single time you feel this. So stop. So it's a great way. That's a great way to control your impulses. Essentially, ask yourself the question: 1, have I done this before? Yes or no. 2, was it a good outcome? Yes or no. If the answer is no to the good outcome, don't do it. Stop sitting in your pain and continuing to do something over and over again that it doesn't serve you.
I got a couple of tips. One of which, go and do your work in Starbucks. It's frowned upon if you start masturbating in there. So there's one. But also, you know what? And this was like, I think I've said this on my social media before, that I realized when I wasn't addicted to porn anymore, when like I've got the house to myself and I'm like, oh great, peace and quiet for work. Or that just might be because I'm getting older, my testosterone's disappeared. But no, like, because I love what I do for work. Like, if I was doing work which I fucking hated, I probably would want some kind of escape into porn or something. But yeah. I love what I'm doing, so I don't want to. I'm like, no, I'm getting a dopamine release right now, working on a book that I love, or working on the podcast or something. So, I obviously it's easier said than done for someone to just click their fingers right now and start doing work that they love. But I guarantee you, if you can get into that, if you're not looking for an escape, you don't, if you want to escape from what you're doing, you don't look for an escape. Is the, like, if you're in the zone of what you're doing, like, I'll tell you this, like, because, like, yeah, fucking porn and stuff you do get a dopamine release on it, but when there's nothing that satisfies more than being in flow state with work that you love doing. And then you look at anything that's a distraction from that as something you don't want anything to do with.
Yeah, I mean, purpose and passion is the ultimate, healing mechanism that you can acquire. And, a lot of people are struggling to believe whether they have a purpose in being on this planet and everything else. And, I firmly believe that everybody is purposely placed here, to experience life and to bring some sort of value, to everybody else here. I mean, when you think about being of service as being, the ultimate feeling, the ultimate good feelings as being of service to others, then if you can start there, okay, I want to serve others, and then just start letting your life happen. Because, dude, without the divorce, I wouldn't be talking to you about this self-awareness stuff. You know what I mean? Without my porn addiction, I wouldn't have been able to discover the alternate truth of how to overcome it. So, I mean, that's what I started to learn, is that no experience is a bad experience. They're all lessons. They're there for you. Some are more painful than others, yes. But without them, you can't find purpose. And that's the biggest thing, is that people want to be this thing. Like, they always have this vision of who they want to be, and they have all the qualities of what they want. And it's in the future, and it seems unattainable. But then life gives you the experiences to acquire those characteristics, and you shy away from them. How can you be this person that you want to be with all these characteristics, like disciplined and determined and successful, when you're given experience to learn discipline, but you don't acquire the discipline because you shy away from the experience? So it's like they want their cake and eat it too. No, if you want your cake and you want to eat it, you need to start, I guess, eating all your experiences and digesting them into things that you can use, which is knowledge.
And I think part of that as well just comes down to when you're a young man. I don't know what it's like to be a young one, but when you're a young man, you think that your life's going to be over at 30, and like, so anything that's like, is a negative experience just kind of gets really blown out of proportion, because you're like, this is my life. Like, if I don't make it in the next 5 years, if I don't solve this problem now, then my life is over. And what you realize once, I'm at the back end of my 30s now, is you're like, life doesn't end at 30. And like, you start looking at those experiences then with this look of gratitude of, oh, great, look what this has taught me. And I can implement that for hopefully the next 50 years of my life. Whereas when you're in your 20s, I feel like it's very hard to, and your teens, especially, it's very hard to see past that. And you can't see something as like, oh, this is going to be a great lesson, which is literally going to set me up for 50 years. It's like, this has ruined my life. My life is over. And I think sometimes, like, time really is the healer with a lot of stuff. And like, I don't know if you'd have told me this as 25-year-old me, I don't know if I could have listened, if I'd listened to this and been like, I think what my answer would have been of, well, that's what it was like for you, but that's different for me. I don't know if you can get past that without actually going through it. What do you think?
Well, I mean, you're talking about the difference between a victim state of mind and personal accountability and personal responsibility. And, victimhood is the number one limiting action and also thoughts that people take, is that, obviously things are being done to them. It's everybody else's fault. It's never their fault. It's never their responsibility. And it's very common of those early 20s and teens. I mean, you're coming from being taken care of to having to take care of yourself. So like, in that transition, there's so many different variables and experiences that can happen to you that can accelerate the fact that basically what you were told the world is not. Everything that you grew up and I want to talk about like everybody. I mean, everybody has a different, childhood experience, but there's one thing that's very common, is that you had a caretaker. Right. And then once you are an adult, you don't have a caretaker. So like, it's definitely different. And you need to figure out through your own process. And the faster you come to this understanding, the better. Like, if I was going to tell my 21-year-old self something, nobody owes you anything. You need to start. The fastest way to get what you want is to start taking responsibility for who you are and everything that you do. once you start doing that, that's an essential mindset shift that, hey, I control my life rather than I don't. And once you really believe that, then you can start to manifest and create whatever you want to create in this life. That is what is so beautiful. Going back to, hey, we're all an extension of the infinite creator, God, which means that, hey, we can all create. And as long as we're creating from a place of love and service, you can create some incredible things for this world.
I gotta say, like, because I know some people will be thinking about God now and wondering what kind of interpretation you're working from. And I mean, my interpretation of it is still kind of changed. Like, I think my thing is I've just put my hands up and go, I don't know, but I feel that I really do feel that consciousness is connected somehow. And that's not just consciousness of people, consciousness into animals, consciousness into plants. I really do think that everything is connected somehow. I don't know how, I don't know why. But that's just kind of how I feel. And I think that what you're saying about creating is just so, like, I genuinely think that we're all here to create in one way or another. It doesn't mean people have to have a podcast or write or whatever, but that, you know, you could be, when somebody fixes a car up, that is creating, you know. But I do feel like I just don't know any humans. I don't know any humans in my life who aren't creating something, who are happy. I just don't.
Yeah, and I mean, when you think about the universe, it's the original creation, right? So we're sitting in the middle of what has been created for us so that we can experience creation and that we can create. Like, that is the foundation of this universe for what I understand it to be. And I'll tell you this, you're talking about like my interpretation of God. It has changed from 2020 because of a book that has been the most impactful and what I would probably call the most impactful spiritual text that I've ever written. I wish I wrote it, read, in a sense of understanding, you know, the soul's evolutionary journey of what we do. And that book is called The Raw Contact, Teaching the Law of One. Now, I will say this, that I'm not going to explain it ins and outs of the book because it is so far out there that to the conventional person, it would be seen as, it would be discredited almost immediately. But without giving you the context of what it is, Gez, I invite you to check this book out and read it and listen to it for yourself. Essentially what it says is that the soul is on an evolutionary journey. And just like the physical space is evolving, so is the soul. And that we're sitting in the middle of what's called third density, and density being basically the refraction of light, like that we're in dense chemical bodies right now. And eventually, as our soul continues to transform, we will transform into more of a light body, which light is really the only thing that's true that's in this universe. I mean, looking at my computer in front of me, it's a projection of light. And that through this process, if you look at like right now, everything that's happening right now in our world is that this huge awakening is happening, right? Spiritual awakening. Social media is allowing everybody to be connected. All of the hypocrisies that are happening in the government, all of the things that are bad are starting to come to light. Black Lives Matter movement, you know, women's rights movement that was in the 70s, the racial movement, everything is pushing everybody to be more united and to actually start to see each other as one. And this is happening naturally right now in our world around us. Because the next step in our soul's evolution is love and understanding. Why is self-awareness practice so important here in this third density? Because we are learning about ourselves, and what we're learning is that the ultimate is love for others and love for ourselves. And as we learn that, we can then progress further in our soul's evolution into what's called fourth density. And then there's a fifth and sixth and seventh density. And again, I know I'm being very vague, but if I were to go into the entire thing, I would be able to talk to you for probably 5 hours about it. So I would invite anybody who's really wondering, and this would be for the person I would say that sees religion and feels the intuitive wrong that's with it. And pretty much everything that you feel is wrong with religion, in a sense of your intuition is like, that's a little bit off. Your intuition will be answered with this book. And that's all I can really say about it to make it as impactful as possible.
I definitely believe, right, without a shadow of a doubt, that the more I feel connected to other people, the happier I am. That's just the bottom line, right? So I know that. I know that as a fact. What I disagree with on the social media thing there is, unfortunately, I think that it's actually dividing people more. I feel like the world's getting more divided at the moment. The lines are being drawn up. I feel like we were getting to that point. I feel like now that's turning the opposite way. I really do believe that there's people on this planet And I think if people don't believe this, and they just haven't read history. There's people who have a vested interest in people being divided, and I really think, because I'll take racism for instance, the difference between even in my lifetime, the difference in racism in the UK, I don't think is as bad as what it is in the US, because there is a bit of a difference there, but. When I was a kid, it was normal to make racist jokes and stuff. It just was and there wasn't black families where I live or anything like that. And now there is. And it's just not a big deal for most people. People just get along with it. And things were changing. And I think in another 30 years, it would have just been something that you didn't even think about. And I think there's a lot of people on the planet who do not want people to get along, because if you can't divide people, you can't conquer people. And I think that a lot of these issues have been brought to the surface, not to unite us, but to divide us, because I think most people are inherently good. I'm not sure where I stand on if some people, like the same you were saying about the epistemology and how people can pass on anxiety. I think that may also be that might be also possible with evil. I think some people are born wrong, but it's interesting because like social media one is such a tough one, because on one, like, I wouldn't be talking to you if it wasn't for social media. I've met some great friends through social media. Like, social media overall for me has been a force for good. But then, you've only got to spend 5 seconds reading Twitter comments to see that for every person that's had a great interaction like me with you, there's a lot of people out there who are spending their days just insulting people and arguing.
Well, yeah, and I agree. And what it's done basically is just think about the volume of people that do not love themselves and have not done work internally. But then, and there's going to be more of that. Like, there's more people. I would say, in my opinion, I don't have numbers behind this, that the majority of the people on planet Earth right now are not self-aware. And so there's a difference in that space. But again, if the soul's evolutionary journey is to become self-aware, and we have more, in my opinion, more than this lifetime for us to be able to figure that out.
I agree.
Then we start to realize and understand that because that's the dividing line, the fact that social media is allowing self-aware people to get their word out to those who aren't self-aware is the impact that I see. Because prior to social media, we had a whole bunch of unself-aware people who had no access to anybody else except for their neighbors and books if they chose to read them. Now, if you have an unself-aware person come to my page and read one of my posts and that makes an impact on them to change, we didn't have that before. So that's my view on social media, is that one, yes, it's all about how you use it. And a self-aware person, or somebody who actually knows their purpose and passion, a gift that they have to give to the world, can use that tool for an incredible impact. Those who see it as a place to go and bag on people and basically spew hate that they feel to themselves, that they're projecting on everybody else because of their shitty life, that is the type of space in which it's not very good for others. And then also, I would invite anybody, if they haven't done so yet, to go watch The Social Dilemma on Netflix. You're talking about starting to understand why the algorithm on Instagram and Facebook has caused division in the United States, and also caused a freaking military coup in Malaysia in 2017. Like, Facebook was the cause of this. So when you start to see that and you start to realize that, hey, I'm being run by an algorithm, which is the ultimate fear for most people, is that AI is going to run their life. AI is already running your life. You're not aware of it. Mm-hmm. And if you become aware of that, then you'll stop letting it run your life and influence who you are as a person.
And I'm going to say, full disclosure, sometimes I just enjoy arguing with somebody. Because you know what, dude? So it's like, at the end of the day, I fucking enjoy going to war. Like, I'm not going to pretend that I don't enjoy confrontation, because sometimes, like, I'll see, and this is, I try to get in this habit now. Sometimes I will overreact to what someone says, because I might be in a bad mood or whatever, and then I will apologize to that person or delete the comment. But there's sometimes when someone's just a dickhead and I want them to know they're a dickhead.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, man. Like, arguing with, you, for instance, or somebody who has a mind that is open to other beliefs and interpretations, and can also have the control of saying, okay, I get that that's what you believe. It's not what I believe, but I don't hate you for it.
Yeah.
that's the type of person I can argue with all day, because it's not arguing technically. It's basically having a debate. You know what I mean? But then when you get with people that are so close-minded and they don't even realize that they've become close-minded because of the influence that social media has had on them to make them close-minded, that is where it's very dangerous, because this person, no matter what you say to them, even if you're spitting absolute 100% truth to them, they have closed themselves off from any other interpretation or belief that could serve them, to the point where they have made division. And if we go back to spiritual awakening and we're all one, and the whole point is for us to be connected, any belief that you have that creates division is a shitty belief.
My strongest belief is that nobody knows anything, and therefore we shouldn't. So like if I'm ever arguing for something, I'm not saying like, look, everything needs to be this way. My argument is the strongest argument I have is, they don't know what's best for me. I don't know what's best for them. Let's make our own. Let's allow people to make their own decisions, to as much as possible. Because I'm at a point now in my life where I look back on so many strongly held beliefs that I've had, and I go, well, that was a load of bollocks. So now it's like, even the beliefs that I have now, I'm very open to the idea that in 20 years I might look back on them and go, well, that was bollocks too. I never thought I'd get to the point where sometimes I'll go for a walk now, and like a thought of, say, one of my grandparents might pop into my head, and I'll just feel this urge to just put my hand on a tree or something. Now, if you just said to me 20 years ago, oh, when you go for a walk, you're going to think about your granddad and you're going to put your hand on a tree because you're going to hope that somehow that connects you to him, I'd have said, you're fucking mad. And now I'm like, you know what? It might be mad, but it felt right, so I'm going to fucking do it.
Yeah, well, that's the biggest thing with beliefs, man. Like, and I always tell other people this, like, you don't have to believe it, but as long as this belief is serving me in a sense as it makes me happy and it helps me feel love, then I'm going to keep believing it. Yeah. Like, why are you knocking against my belief? Because it makes me happy. So like, that's my biggest belief. And for me is with other people is like, hey man, like, as long as it makes you happy and it's pushing you forward in growth, like, keep believing it. Who gives a shit whatever the people say? Yeah,
I'm not about to start burning people at the stake if they don't. I'm not like, right, oh, you didn't touch a tree when you went for a walk, right now you got burned at the stake.
Yeah, exactly.
That's when it becomes a problem.
Yeah, well, welcome to America's political environment, and we can start getting through that. But that's pretty much what it seems to be. But the problem is again that I'm actually looking on my wall right now, and that I have 6 what I call unshakable beliefs. These are beliefs that no matter what anybody tries to influence me to believe, like, they could never get me to not believe these things that I have on my wall. And I see them every single day. And that's the main problem that I find. And again, if we go back to that self-awareness practice, like, if you don't know what you stand for in your heart, then how can you even act? Mm-hmm. Like, how can you justify your actions as being right or wrong if you don't know what you stand for? So most people are creating actions and opinions based off what they've learned from other people, or what they see on social media, or what they learned from their parents and their teachers and their, pastor or whatever else. And none of it, they've never even asked the question, why do I believe this? Where does this come from? So that's the biggest and the most dangerous thing I see, is that, again, people taking action based off beliefs that aren't even theirs. And because of that, the actions they take usually do not end well.
Is everybody capable? Because, all right, I'm going to not putting my tinfoil hat on. I don't know what kind of hat this is. This is my DMT. I'm going to put my DMT hat on. Right.
Awesome.
Sometimes I think I live in virtual reality, right? So sometimes I think I live in virtual reality. And because I look at some, like, when I look at, sometimes I sit down, God, I'm listening to what's coming out through my head and seeing it. Right, sometimes I look at my cat and I know that there's consciousness in my cat's eyes, right? But I can't understand how my cat sees or views the world. But I know there's consciousness in there. Sometimes when I look at other human beings, I'm like, I know you've got a light on behind those eyes, but I can no more understand you than I can understand my cat. Because I can understand that somebody they get told something and they never question it. But when you give somebody, you're like, look, okay, this is what you believed. Here's some reasons why that might not be true. I'm not saying it's not, might not be. Will you consider this? And then when somebody can't, like, it just seems to me that some people, whatever that is, like, fast twitch muscle fibers, slow twitch muscle fibers. Some people have more fast twitch than slow twitch. I'm starting to think that maybe some people don't have the capability for critical thought, that they have like an input, like they have input and they have output, but they don't have the processes in between to kind of filter one out to the other. Do you understand what I mean?
I understand what you mean, and I would say that yes, maybe it's that it's not to the capability of, let's just say, me or you. But again, if we take a step back and again, in my belief that this isn't the only life that I'm going to be living, and my consciousness is on an evolutionary journey, that to say that it's impossible, I would say no. I think that every single soul is making it in their own speed, in their own time. But then that's the dividing line, is it still means that there are people that are going to get it faster than others, and that has everything to do with, I don't actually, I would tell you is that I don't know what the actual dividing line between why I can interpret an experience as a lesson and other people interpret an experience as, shitty and happening to them at this point in their life. I don't actually know the reason why that is, and how I progressed in that way. But I do know that that person that hasn't acquired this yet has more lifetimes to figure it out. Mm-hmm. So if I were going to give a step back and say, maybe they're not going to get in this one, but they have thousands and thousands and maybe even millions more times to be able to get this right, eventually they will. So my faith in people goes beyond, it's probably one of the most impactful things that I do is I try and take a bird's eye view of everything, not being so myopically focused on the one thing at the one moment, and taking a step back and be like, okay, like in your example, this guy was a dick. He said a dick thing. God, if I were to be so, basically wrapped up with who he is, be like, dude, you're a dick. You're worthless. Da, da, da. I can say all those things. But then I can also look back and be like, he might regret that, in a couple hours when he thinks about how he treated me and how he went through that process. And that regret, to be honest with you, is going to be worse than anything I could say to him. So I'm going to just let that sit in his soul and he can figure it out. You know what I mean? So that's the type of thing in which I like to think about, so I don't take things personally as well.
I want to pick up on what you're saying about this kind of more than one life, right? Because I'm starting to come down now heavily in the camp of we do get more than one go around. And not in any way that I can kind of explain. But one of the things that, one of the lads, I don't know if he's listening, shout out to Steve if he is, but he said to me the other day, he was like, where'd you get your inspiration from? I'm writing. And this is the truth. I just fucking sit down and it comes out. It just does. Now, where's that coming from? How can I have am I just the same as a radio antenna that's just picking up stuff that's in the air? Or is that experiences that I've had myself? I don't know. It just fucking comes out and I can't get my head around it.
I think it's a mixture of both, my man. I think what I like to call is intelligent energy. So intelligent energy, or you called it flow state, right? So when you start to align your energies, and I'm going to talk about the chakras essentially, but your red ray, your orange ray, your yellow, your green, all the way up the chakra. When you start to basically understand that each energy center, and if I were going to just use anxiety for an example, why do you feel anxiety in your gut? Well, that's because your yellow energy center is what's responsible for anxiety. And why do you feel sexually turned on in your gut? Well, that's because your orange energy center is responsible for being sexually turned on. And these are all in your gut area. So when you start to align yourself, when you start to know yourself, and that's what happens when you're aligning your energies, is basically you start to know and understand who you are. Think about, if you had a line that's going straight up through the top of your head, and then that's shooting energy into the universe, and it's a channel for you to channel in what I like to call downloads from the universe, so that you can then bring it to the world. Like doing this podcast right now, man, I don't remember what we've talked about the entire time, in a sense of most of what I'm saying isn't coming because I'm thinking about it. It's coming because it's coming from my heart directly into my mouth. And that is from alignment. So with that being said, if you have a crooked line, then you're not being able to have access to the intelligent energy that's coming through you. So that's what I think really comes from that, is that once you have that purpose, that passion, and then you start doing the work to show that you are serious about doing it, then the universe starts to say, cool, this person's ready. I'm going to go ahead and start throwing some ideas into their head and see if they attach to it. Oh, that one's a good one. Yes, share that one. Now let that blossom into something more. And now let that inspire millions of people. And now, so there's that effect of what's coming from it. And that's really where I come from with that, is that, hey, the more you align yourself, the more you have access to this intelligent energy.
Bro, the term downloads is very apt for it because like I literally have it like I did it'll be out by the time we do this. People might have seen it in social media. I wrote a song recently that's out now. And I went out, so my friend sent me the music. I went outside, I listened to the track once, I lay down on the grass, and then the words came, I wrote it out, I sent it to him, said, this is perfect. There's nothing that's been changed on it. It's gone through all the hands of all the other stages of the thing now. Nothing got changed. That came to me in a absolute perfectly formed download.
Yeah, no, and I remember
like, where the fuck did that come from? It's nuts.
You were talking to me about this song last year. Like you were talking to me about it and like how I think it was in the beginning stages of process of it last year.
No, this is different, dude. Like, so I've had some like that. This one literally just came down. I was like, boom, it was all there. All the lines, the melody, the words, boom, in one. I text my mate back with the words and the melody, and like I sang him the melody a couple of minutes later, and he's like, where the fuck he's like, where the fuck's that come from? I said, dude, like, literally, I listened to that song. He sent me the music once. I listened to it once, and it was just there. And I was like, I felt like I just clicked something and it downloaded. I don't think that's me. I think that's literally someone stuck something in my head and it's come out.
Yeah, and going back to, again, my belief that we're all an extension of the intelligent or the infinite creator, right? We're all an extension of God. That means that we all have access to the same intelligent energy. Like we all have the same access to it. You know, so thinking about it, yes, it's not coming from me, but I am the vessel that is holding this and now communicating this to other extensions of me so that they start to understand this, whether it's a song or, you know, for instance, my example would be me and Julia, you know, rolled out this new program called Fit for Her, which is all about, you know, helping women heal from their relationship with food and also building the body they desire. So it's self-awareness. And then it's also, you know, nutrition and health. When I thought about this, I was leaving cardio with her and it was like this thought came into my head. And then I just mapped out what it was going to be called, what we were going to do, how we were going to roll it out, how we were going to market it to everybody else, when we were going to start it. And like by the time the 10-minute drive from the gym to home, I had an entire plan mapped out that we are executing on right now. So it's just when it happens, and you feel it intuitively so much that it's the right thing to do that it compels you to do it.
I want to give people a tip here now, because just the tip. The tip is, right, because there's a part of you, and I used to do this in the past. I would get an idea and I would go, oh, well, I got that so quickly. There's no way that could be the best version of the idea. And you start tinkering with it and you start fucking with it, because we have this idea in Western society, because we work on the hours schedule at work. Oh, well, it can't be that you just it can't be that you just got it like that. No, you've got to put 40 hours in on it or whatever. And that's what I used to do in the past. I'd get a good idea and I'd think, oh, well, I can't just run with that, because what if there's a better, you know, and you tinker with it and you fuck it up and you lose the essence of it. So, you know, sometimes it's like it's your gut. You gotta trust your gut. There's a reason people say trust your gut.
Yeah, a grounding statement that has helped, and I try and actually use this with most of my clients, is just don't think, just do. Stop thinking. The more you think, the more you negotiate with yourself. And if you're aware that one of your brain's primary functions is to protect you from doing anything uncomfortable, the more you think, the more your brain is going to be like, nah, you shouldn't do that. Nah, you shouldn't do that. Nah, it's not quite good enough. Nah, you know what I mean? And all that's doing is basically preventing you from feeling the fear of judgment of whatever it is that you're about to do, because you feel like it's not going to be good enough to other people, when in all actuality, they don't give a shit. They really don't. You know, it's like how it comes out. This is why I go back to like intention and energy. If you have a really, really strong intention when it comes to, hey, I'm doing this out of love, honesty, and my intention to serve, it doesn't matter how the action comes out. It's going to be accepted that way.
Man, I want to talk a bit about, I want to give some people some like nuts and bolts and stuff like that. So let's talk about like routine, because I'm a big believer in routine. There was always a bit of me that used to kind of rebel against it and be like, nah, routine's for losers. You know, you should just be able to like wing everything. Kind of against that idea now. I think routine is very important. What's your routine like?
I meditate now in the afternoon, normally around like 12:30 or 1 o'clock. So that's always my midday break. And it's a way for me to basically connect with myself. And also the type of meditation that I do is 5 times deeper rest for your brain than sleep. So when you have that kind of that afternoon lull, it's a great time to do it. I go there first because, to be honest, when I wake up in the morning now, I used to wake up and I used to meditate, and then I would journal, and then I would get started. And what I've found now is that if I'm setting myself up the night before, it actually makes me more productive in the morning. And you're actually catching me at my, it's 9, 10, 15 here in Austin. My most creative time is from about 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. So I don't like what I would consider wasting that time on setting myself up for things that I'm already setting myself up from the night before. So by basically journaling a little bit the night before, writing out my to-do list, and then even setting intentions behind the actions I'm going to take in the morning, it makes it so that I can wake up, grab a cup of coffee, drink some water, and then I'm just like in my element until about noon. At noon is when I meditate. That's kind of like my refresh. And then I start to look at my day as another half, which is the second half of the day. I start to look at each thing that I'm going to do and setting an intention behind how I'm going to show up. And that would be the biggest thing that I would give to anybody that is trying to basically create their life, is that if you want to live life on your terms, you need to set intentions for your life. And not only for your life, but I set intentions for every daily action. For instance, before I came on this podcast with you, I said, okay, I'm feeling a little bit nervous. I really love Gez and I love talking to Gez. So I want to make sure that I'm giving the best for my audience. So what I did was a form of breathing called alternate nostril breathing, which allowed me to basically not be nervous anymore. And then I set my intention, and my intention for this whole thing was to be honest, was to show as much love as I could, and to give as much value as I could. And without me putting that into my conscious awareness prior to, I would probably have still come into this podcast being nervous, but I wasn't, because I started grounding myself in exactly how I wanted to show up. Again, that unknown is gone. So I'm not feeling anxious about it because I know what I'm going to be. So that's what I've done with my day, is I break it up in the morning for the night before, setting intentions of how I'm going to show up. And then at 12 o'clock, meditate. And then I set my intentions on how I'm going to show up with my afternoon actions. And what it does is it aligns my intention of my heart with my thought process, with my actions. And I show up exactly how I want to show up. And there's no way that I can judge myself for being lesser than, because I know that I've showed up in the way I intended.
That's really cool, dude. I'm going to take that away from this, because as you were saying that, I was thinking, okay, I do that before bed. I check in with my day. I go, what did I do well? What did I didn't? And I say, what am I going to do tomorrow? What am I going to write? All that kind of stuff. But I haven't been doing it in the break. I haven't been doing it like, right, what am I going to get out of this gym session? What am I going to get out of this? So I haven't been doing that. So I'm going to take that away from that. So thank you for that, because that's something that, it's again, it's self-awareness, isn't it? It's checking in on yourself and setting that intention, because otherwise you just kind of you're just ghosting through things. You're just sleepwalking.
Yeah. And it's something that happened actually last night was, and this is just an example of what starts to become a big deal to you once you start getting in that much alignment, is Julia was making some protein pancakes, and I had made a face of disapproval to her protein pancakes, which had like 450 calories in it. Like it is not a bad thing at all. And I don't know why that was my initial reaction, but after I felt that she felt that reaction and almost made her feel guilty for eating protein pancakes. And I sat there, and for about a minute, I thought about being like, all right, I want to be like, babe, like I didn't mean to show up that way. Like, that's not how I meant to show up. And I tried to basically just write it off, and I couldn't. It became stronger and stronger and stronger until eventually it was like 2 or 3 minutes after the interaction. I was like, hey, babe, like, I don't know why I reacted that way, but that's not how I actually feel. I need you to know that, like, it's totally okay for you to eat protein pancakes. And whatever my judgmental face was not me. I don't know why that was my reaction. And that is something that I would not be hyper aware of. And that was something that in the past wouldn't even bother me. Like, I just be like, whatever. But now that's the biggest deal to me, is that I did not show up in the way that I intended to show up for her in that moment. And I want to let her know. And I let most people know when that doesn't happen.
While we're on the subject of protein, I want to talk a bit about the gym, because you're in fantastic shape for anybody that hasn't seen pictures of you. You are a bit, like there's a lot of people these days, they love the old CrossFit and everything like that. Personally, I'm old school. I like old school training. What kind of training are you? Tell people what kind of training you're into and that side of your life.
So with bodybuilding, I've been a bodybuilder, I guess you could say, for the last 7 years or 8 years of my life, which I took it up actually from CrossFit. So I was doing CrossFit for a short time, and then I got into bodybuilding. And once I got into bodybuilding, something started to change in me in a sense of I really started to enjoy pain. Because with CrossFit, I did not like the I'm about to die at the end of every single 15 to 20 minutes of like death. And I was done. I didn't like it. But like, for whatever reason with bodybuilding, I enjoyed the burn. I enjoyed the pain. It really helped me connect my mind with my body. And that's what I really enjoyed about it, is that when you're training with intention to basically connect to your muscles, and you start to connect to dormant muscles, so muscles that were not shut down, and you start connecting with them. Well, obviously, once you put resistance on something that hasn't been put resistance on, it's going to grow. So that's been where I've been with that for a long time now. And I've competed, obviously, and done pretty well with competing. But I decided this last year that this was my last year of competing. So I'm actually not going to be competing as a bodybuilder anymore. That actually happened through my last show, where I realized that I felt more joy, love, and gratitude for my client's success than I did for mine. And I'm like, then why the fuck am I doing this? Like, if it's not that important to me, why am I doing this when I know coaching and mentoring is my calling anyways? So now I'm actually in a kind of a transition point where I'm going to be still weightlifting, bodybuilding style, for probably at least 4 a week. And then I want to start putting in yoga and a little bit more mobility movement and stuff like that. Because it's just better longevity. My joints, I've put a massive amount. I wouldn't say a massive amount. I'm not a massive bodybuilder, but I'm 220. I put on enough muscle that like it's heavy to carry. So I need to start making it more healthy through the mobility and stretching practices.
Not just that, dude. Like I'll say this about yoga and stuff. Sometimes I'll go through phases where I'll get into doing it, and then I'll just stop doing it for a few days, and it'll fall out, and I'll forget to stop doing it. And then I went in for a shower today, and I was like, fuck, I've got fat. And then I got on the scales. I was the same weight. I was like, oh, what's going on here? And I realized it was my posture, because I've just written a new book. So I've been spending every day, basically from the moment I get up, until, apart from like one training session, maybe 2 training sessions, I'm pretty much sat down from when I get up until when I go to bed. And my hips had scooted back. My lower back had rounded out. My stomach had got pushed forwards. So even though there was no actual difference in my size or weight or anything, I looked fat because my posture was pulling me that way. And I thought, why train 7 days a week doing bodybuilding to look better when I could just do a couple of days of yoga, and my posture, just not even by growing muscle or losing fat, just by changing my posture, I'll look better. And I think one of the things, and I see this a lot, I'm sure you see it a lot as well, is, there's guys in bodybuilding gyms who have a huge amount of muscle, but they look awful because their posture. And I do think you can get away with a lot when you're younger, but once you are like, and there's no getting away with certain jobs. If you're sat at a desk, you probably are going to pronate your shoulders. Your shoulders are going to round, and your lower back is going to, your hips are going to get tight, and your lower back's going to get weak. That stuff is going to happen, and you have to counter it with yoga, or some kind of flexibility and postural work.
Yeah, well, and the body's response to a better posture influences the mind to think more positively. So when you stick your chest out and your chin up, it makes you feel more confident immediately. It influences your thought process to feel more confident. When you're walking around with your chin down and hunched over, you look like you're sad.
Yeah.
And so because your body posture looks that way, it influences your brain to feel more sadness or more apathy than confidence and self-assurance and everything else. So posture is a huge deal when it comes to how you carry yourself, is how people perceive you, and it's also how you perceive yourself.
I imagine their reaction to you will then further alter your perception of yourself. So if people look at you and you can see that they're like, oh, fucking hell, that's a confident bloke. Or if they're looking at you going, what's this fucking weirdo creep up to? You can feel those vibes from them, can't you, basically? The vibe is real.
Yeah, and, a balance that I've had to achieve is basically because my presence is very intimidating to most people who would just see me. I mean, I'm 220, I have tattoos, I'm bodybuilder, I look the way that I look, is not only feeling confident, but then not feeling arrogant. Like, I don't want people to perceive me as being arrogant. I want people to see the confidence and also feel safe to be able to come up and talk to me if they would like to talk to me. And I actively work on that type of energy when I'm in a space in which people are around me. And I'll tell you the result with that. And another reason why I do the type of self-awareness coaching work that I do is that I have strangers within the first 5 minutes start telling me things that they've never told anybody. And they'll be like, I don't even know why I'm telling you this because I've never told anybody this. And I'm like, man, it happens all the time. Don't worry. Yeah. So that was actually kind of a key to the universe for me, like understanding like there is a safe and open energy that I give off naturally that I want to be able to maintain no matter what I look like, because that allows for people to come into my space and I can give them service. I can help them with what they're bringing to me, you know, in a sense of helping guide them through that process.
That's awesome. Mate, we've got a few minutes left. I want to hear what your plans are for 2021.
Man, 2021 is going to be a big year. So, you know, we set the foundations for this Fit for Her program that I was just talking about, that I'm doing with Julia right now. And it's already kicking off, doing very well. You know, we haven't even brought it to the ad space yet. We're just doing the warm traffic, and the amount of, you know, applications and women that we have flooding in is huge. So, you know, my goal is basically to get this up and running. I'm grateful to have people around me that can basically start taking it over as it scales. I'd like to get out in about 6 months and basically just run it as a CEO, you know, a true CEO, and then use the rest of the time to do even more self-exploration and also more exploration into teaching self-awareness and, you know, basically refining that and continuing to refine that. And also I'm heavily invested into crypto. And if you know anything about what's going on in the crypto world right now, I'm hoping for a large return at the end of this year that allows me to truly step back and almost have an experience like I had in quarantine, except for an extended amount of time, where I can really start to work even further on myself to be able to reassure myself of the service that I have to give and to be able to help more people. We're starting the events again, you know, the event that you came to last year. You know, I wanted to redo that, but, you know, we're in the middle of what we're doing right now. So the events for this year, once, you know, it becomes a little bit less fearful, I guess you could say, with Corona, is putting together socials. So Fitspo Social is this new thing that we have coming on where we're getting all the fitness community of Austin together with a whole bunch of fitness influencers and basically just throwing like a party for fitness people, which if you know anything about fitness people, we like to party. And that's something. So really just about, you know, my goal for 2021 is one, to help as many people. Actually, I'm going to take that back. My goal for 2021 is to inspire 888,888 people directly and affect them directly. What does that mean? 8 is the number of abundance. So whenever you hear people say that I want to help 1 million people, that's the normal thing. So I like to use something that's a little bit more registered into my brain. And then on the other side of that, bring people together and out of this shit, and bring people back into socially connecting and feeling love and just loving being around people again without the fear that they're going to catch some virus. That'll be probably the most rewarding thing, is bringing people together and seeing that connection and seeing the love that everybody has for each other. I can't wait for that moment to happen. And we're supposed to have our first one here in probably late March, early April. So that's going to be very exciting.
That's awesome, bro. And I think that is definitely going to be where, you know, people have been made to feel afraid of each other. And like, look, I'm not saying that there's no reason to not, you know, that some people should be, you know, cautious and stuff. I'm not saying that. But without doubt, you know, for every action, there is a equal and opposite reaction. That means that, you know, there's going to be work to do to undo this kind of, you know, conditioning of fear and to bring people closer together. And I think that, you know, that anybody with a platform, anybody with a gift, you know, has a duty to do that. So that's awesome. And I don't know if it's going to happen this year, to be honest. I don't know if people are going to be allowed to travel to the States and stuff, but I hope to be able to come to that fitness party because I need a good party, mate. But mate, thanks so much for coming on today, mate. It's been really nice to catch up with you, and I need you to give hugs to everyone in the crew.
I will, man. I'm just grateful that, you know, you've given me this opportunity to not only reconnect with you, but to share with your audience. And Yes, I can't wait to see you again, man. I love you, brother.
Love you too, mate. And I'll let everybody know in the outro where to find you. I'll link everything up. We can have a chat about that. Yeah, but thank you, mate. I love you, and I'll catch you soon. I hope.
Cool, man.
Guys, thank you so much for listening today. Zach, thank you for giving us your time all the way from Austin, Texas. I like saying that because it just sounds very exotic, doesn't it? Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on, mate. I think everyone will have taken something away from today. If you did, guys, then please square us away and go and see Zack on social media. Everything's linked in the show notes. Go and give him a follow. Say thank you to him. If he's given you some information today, I think it's very fair to go and say thank you to someone, isn't it? So how about that? And then while you're on it, how about making a post, sharing a post, telling people about the podcast, bringing people along? I'd love it to see our numbers grow this year like we did last year. We doubled in size last year. I'd love to double or triple again this year. Put a big XL on our crowd numbers. That would be great. While we're on the subject of getting XL, see what I did there? Thank you, Combat Fuel, for my juicy gains. Appreciate it. Vegan protein, get it down you. Regular pre-workout, strawberry and lime, get it down you. Pump up protein, not protein, pre-workout, get it down you. I just forgot my words. I was thinking about getting home and getting in the gym and just totally lost track of my thoughts because I can't wait for a skin-tearing vascular pump. That's what I'm talking about. All right, guys. Oh, by the way, especially gentlemen listening, Combat Fuel now have zinc and magnesium supplements. Morning glory for days, boys. Right? That's all I'm saying on that one. Now, granted, most of us have only got a sock to pleasure at the moment, but hope springs eternal. Lockdown might be finished soon. So get yourself some ZMA. You will thank me. Although, please don't think about me while you're thanking me. Let's just move on, shall we? Thank you for listening to today's podcast, guys. If you enjoyed it, leave us a review on iTunes. Tell a mate, bring a mate along, share a post, and please go and say thank you to Zack for giving up his time for today's podcast. I'll catch you next time. I love you. Bye.
You told me not to worry, and you wouldn't break my heart. You told me you were sorry, yeah, my whole world fell apart. You said it's not my fault, and yeah, I've never done you wrong. I'm grinding to a halt, now I can see you're moving on. I promised I'd get better, and I told you things would change. You keep me to the gutter, yeah, I'll never be the same. I've gotta let you go, now live your life and spread your wings. And yeah, you put on quite a show, and pulled the puppet strings. And are you sure that you don't want me? Remember all the pain, or maybe you should thank me. It's your loss and my gain. I'm leaving now forever, I won't hang my head in shame. But yeah, you've taken me for granted, and you should feel ashamed. You sold a dream to all of us, a dream that we'd all die for, a reason for us all to live and something we could fight for. I might just help a man up to his feet or hold a newborn, but no matter what I do, my hands remembering my rifle, yeah.
Life's hard, I know that, still wouldn't change shit. I wouldn't go back, yeah, I wouldn't go back. Feelings I hold back, memories fade, yeah, they go fast, yeah, they go fast. Good times that come and go, survive the highs and lows, just take it step by step, I guess, yeah, I suppose. Good times that come and go, survive the highs and lows, just take it step by step, I guess, yeah.